ASMR Retro Forever. Hey guys, it's ASMR Retro here. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is actually for YouTube user Retro Effect. Way back in my second Q&A video, he asked the question, could you share your video game history, systems owned, games that meant a lot to you, etc. And I liked that question so much that I said I would answer that in detail in another video. And finally I'm getting around to it now, so sorry for the delay, Retro Effect. I think that was back in probably November or December or something that I did that Q&A, so better late than never, I guess. So as you can see, I have my timeline here of the 4 decades of destruction, as I call it, and 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, and I will summarize the consoles that I owned, the main ones anyways. Like, so there's a lot of consoles that I bought for collecting purposes later on, like probably in the 2010s and maybe even in the 2000s, and I didn't own them for long because I had to sell them for various reasons. But so I'm not going to include things like that. It's mostly going to be the consoles and games that meant the most to me, so the important ones, I guess. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of important ones that I forget, but I'll try my best. Okay, so let's get started in the golden age of the 80s, which I represented as the color green for some reason, but anyway, so now the first, my journey, my video game journey begins approximately in 1984. From what I remember, I was very young, but the first console that I remember specifically playing was the Atari 2600, and so I'll draw a little circle here around 84. I don't want to, this might get very messy, so I'll just do, I'll do a dotted line. I'll do it way up here. First, so this history is going to include consoles owned and consoles that I played if they're significant in my personal history. There's going to be a lot, I mean, like for example, Sega Genesis wasn't that big for me in my history because I was more of a Nintendo guy, so I don't include the first time that I played that. I don't even remember the first time when I played Genesis, but I think you get the idea. So first, it's kind of small, but it kind of has to be because I think it's going to get messy. First, console slash video game played. Okay, let me color code this a little bit since the 80s is green. So like I said, it was the Atari 2600, and I specifically remember I went to a friend's house. It was my brother's friend actually, and we were playing in the basement or something like that, and I remember being more fascinated with the controller. You know, it had that big red button on it, and even the console itself had all those switches, and I was like, wow, this is so like complicated, but in a good way, like so technical or whatever. And yeah, I very distinctively remember playing a bunch of games, but the first game that I remember playing, I don't know if it was actually the first, but the first game that I remember was Combat, COMBAT, for the Atari 2600. So that I will list as the first game that I played. I don't know if it actually was, but it's the first game that I remember playing. And it's a really fun game actually. I mean, for the time it was anyway. It was like, it's that 2-player game where you have the tanks, little tanks, and you have to shoot each other Simple but very fun. So yeah, that is the beginning of my journey. Good way to start my journey, I think. And then let's see. Okay, now is another a big milestone here. So now, what was the first video game console that I owned? So I don't know if this counts, but I'm gonna put it here anyway. So let's see, I'll squeeze it in here. First console owned. First console owned, and it was a Telestar. It was called, sorry, Telstar. See, I always thought it was called Telestar, but it's actually Telstar. I thought there was an E there, like like television, combined with star, but just Telstar. And that is basically it's a Pong console, and it was by Coleco. Coleco's the company that made it. My markers are running out here. Yeah, it's one of those Pong consoles, so it had the games built in. There was no cartridges, and there's like 5 different games, different variations of Pong, or tennis, or whatever, so very simple system, but still I was very happy to have it. So that was approximately, I will say, 1984. Another important date in 1984. Had hours and hours of fun with that thing, let me tell you. Okay, it's going well so far. Okay, what was next? I'm gonna have to use the bottom here. I'm not gonna be able to fit everything in there. So what's next? Let me consult my list. Oh, you know what? I didn't get there yet. Okay. So now my second console that I owned, and I would say it was approximately 1985 that I got this console. It was a beast of a console. It was, let me see, I'll squeeze it in here, I guess. So it was a second console owned. Oops. And it was, drumroll please, it was a ColecoVision by Coleco. So we'll write that in. Coleco Vision. So yeah, I remember, I don't even remember asking for it. Like, I remember my dad came home one day with a box, and I was so curious, like, what is this thing? I didn't ask for it, I didn't even know what it was, never heard of ColecoVision before, so it was just kind of a surprise, a nice surprise. And I remember, I think the first couple of games that we had were Mousetrap and Donkey Kong, classic games. I think most of the games for this system were ports from arcade games or other systems, but it was a good system, definitely better than Atari. Pretty colorful, not quite as powerful, or not even close, I guess, to an NES, but it was a good system. Good for those early arcade ports. And so I'll run down the games that I remember owning. I don't know for sure. There's more games in this that I owned for sure, but these are just the ones that I can remember. Like I said, Mousetrap, Donkey Kong, Antarctic Adventure, Centipede, Decathlon, Frogger 2 3 Deep, Ladybug, Omega Race, Pitfall 2, Cubert, Super Contra, and Tarzan. And there's a lot more games that I borrowed from friends and stuff that I remember playing that are just amazing. So I think I'll definitely do a video about my favorite ColecoVision games. There's definitely some amazing hidden gems there. So yeah, one thing about ColecoVision was the controller was very weird. buttons and this really weird, what do you call it, like an analog type of thing. So it was a pretty cumbersome controller. That was the weakest point of the Coleco, I think. The ColecoVision. Okay, now we're gonna get into the late 80s where things really start to happen here. So let me consult my list again. Okay. Okay, I think it was around 1988 where I first saw Super Mario Brothers. Technically it was the NES version, but it was in an arcade. So it looks like they just put an NES inside of an arcade cabinet and it had Super Mario Brothers on it. And this was before I heard of the NES. And I think I was in, it was like a coffee shop or something like that. Or it might have been a laundromat where my mom was doing laundry, and then there was an arcade there. So me and my brother were playing it, and I just thought it was like the most amazing thing in the world. I was like, what is this? The game's gonna be this good and this fun. It was incredible. And I thought I'd never see the game again, and then I remember probably in the same year, I don't know, oh actually no, that's the next, okay, I'll just finish this one. So this was, let's see, what can I call this? I'll just say, I'll just do it in green. Now then that's gonna break the flow here. I'll just say played Super Mario Bros. Okay. 1988, roughly speaking. Might have been 87, I don't know. And I'll say arcade. Okay. Then, yep. So that was the first time I played Super Mario Broskies. I mean, I think I played the earlier versions of it where it's just Mario and Luigi on the same screen, but that's not the one I'm talking about here. So yeah, like I said, I thought that was the last time that I'd see the game. And then I'll put, so it was approximately, let's see, it was approximately 88 to 89. So I'll just say 88, that it was the first time that I played an NES. Played NES. Now this was at a friend's house. Actually, I think it was the same friend that I played the Atari. First time I played Atari. And so I went to his house, and he had a bunch of games. I don't remember what the other ones were, but I very clearly remember playing Super Mario Brothers. And I'm like, hey, me and my brother were like, hey, this is the same game that we played at the arcade. I'll put Super Mario Bros. And yeah, it was great. I was like, wow, you can own this game in your house. And then I remember my dad were watching us play, and I was like, oh man, I hope he buys this for us. And I remember him saying like, oh wow, this guy's breaking everything, because Mario, you can break all the bricks and stuff like that. It's like he's destroying everything. I don't know why I remember that comment that he made many years ago. Yeah, so that was the first time I played an NES, and then of course, through the years, I played many times at friends and relatives' house and stuff like that, but that was the first. Okay, moving along. The next significant event was, okay, so in 1989. Then I'm gonna have to move to the bottom side here. 1989, actually I'll do that now, why not? owned the Sega Master System, and I think he was like one of the only kids that I knew that owned one. So we spent a lot of time together, and I'd play a lot of Sega at his house. So played Sega Master System. And for you younger people out there, that was basically Sega's console before the Sega Genesis. And it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't as good as the NES. I didn't like it as much as the NES, but still it was pretty awesome. And played Sega Master System at a friend's house. And we played that a lot. I played that so much. Some of the games I remember playing a lot was Double Dragon, Action Fighter, which was an awesome game. The Alex Kidd games, Hang On, Psycho Fox. Oh, that was an awesome game. I like that game a lot. Good platformer. Rambo 3, which was a terrible game, but I remember playing that one a lot too. So there's a lot of other ones, but yeah, those. Oh, and then there was the, I don't know what it was called. We called it the Maze game, where it was a built-in game in the Sega Genesis, where you're just like this little snail, and you have to go through this maze. So when we were like super bored, we would resort to playing that game for some reason. But yeah, so that was the Sega Master System. Good times, good times. Okay, it's amazing now if you look back at the list of Sega Master System games, you'll be kind of surprised. They have like Mortal Kombat on there, they have Sonic the Hedgehog. They ported a lot of games to the Master System that I had no idea. Okay, what's next on the old list, Rooney? Okay, so that was Sega Master System. Let's scroll down. Okay, now we're getting into. Actually, I think that. Oh no, there's more. There's more in the 80s here. That almost ends the 80s. I could have fit it in at the top, but. So now, I'm not sure how to depict this graphically. So between 85 and 90, I'm not sure. So I guess I'll just do one of these. So between 85 and 90, I'm not sure what year it was, but we had, me and my brother had these Nintendo Game & Watch games. Basically it looked like a DS, like it folded in half and you open it up and there's a game inside. But it was just one game, there was no cartridges or nothing. But we had two of them, so we had Donkey Kong, and I think it was Donkey Kong 2. And there was also a game called Squish, which was a pretty cool game. And they're basic little watch type games, but they're actually kind of fun. I mean, way, way better than the Tiger Electronic style games. And I remember having a lot of fun with those. Unfortunately, I think my brother gave them away to somebody. Probably somebody who didn't deserve it, but no, I'm kidding. Yeah, we gave them away, so we don't have them anymore. So I have to add them in there. I guess technically the first. Actually, no, I had a Nintendo game for ColecoVision, Donkey Kong, so it wasn't the first Nintendo game that I owned. Nintendo Game and Watch. And the two games owned were, like I said, Donkey Kong 2 and what was the other one? Squish, right? Yeah, Squish. Squish. Okay, I think. Oh no, there's one more surprise. Well, I'm not really surprised. I don't know why I said it was a surprise, but. And then I'll just do one of these because this was also between that time frame, 85 and 90. I was probably closer to 90. I did own some Tiger Electronic handheld games, unfortunately. But they're fun, I mean, to a certain degree, I guess. There's a certain grab factor that kind of made it fun. decided to get me an NES. Well, me and my brother, I should say. An NES. And it was the happiest day of my life. Not really, but it was a very happy day. I remember it was Christmas. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. I knew we were gonna get it. It wasn't like a surprise, so I can't say that it was a surprise, but still I was very happy. NES. Oh. NES. Whatever, NES, you know what it means. And the first game that I got for the system, well, I got two games. It was, of course, the game that came with the system was Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Broskies. And, which included Duck Hunt. I'm not going to write that on there. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The first game. Which I think I can't find that one for some reason. But anyways, yeah, so those are my first two Nintendo games. And that started a long journey on my love affair with the NES. And I remember, let's see, yeah, the games that I owned eventually were Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, 3, Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, Zelda, Zelda 2, Mega Man 2, Dragon Warrior, Metroid, TMNT, that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, 2, and 3, Super Contra, Battletoads, Blades of Steel, All Pro Basketball, POW, Guardian Legend, great game, Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3, and Excite Bike. And I think there's more. I definitely owned more. Some of them I can't remember, and some of them I don't own anymore. But yeah, if you want to see more about my NES game collection, I did 2 videos about it back in December. Maybe I'll put the links in the description. I go into detail about all the games that I owned or that I own, that I still own, and give you my opinions on it. So yeah, this was probably maybe the most significant point in my timeline. So now, in '92, now this was not that significant, but I feel I should include it here anyway. It was around '92 that my brother bought a Game Boy off of a friend, and I didn't really play it much, to be honest. Like, the screen was kind of messed up, and I don't know, for whatever reason I think the whole battery issue, like changing batteries every 5 seconds, I don't know, for whatever reason I didn't play much Game Boy. But I think one game I do remember owning, it was, what was it called? I think it was called Super Mario Land. Might be part 2, something like the Golden Coin or Golden Coins or something like that. It was the second Super Mario Brothers game for the Game Boy. It's pretty good, actually. I played that quite a bit. But yeah, other than that, Game Boy wasn't a big part of my video game history, and I'm sure most people will have a different experience, but that's okay. So yeah, Game Boy. I did later own the Game Boy converter for a GameCube, so I can play Game Boy games on my TV. So I did end up buying quite a few Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games as well, which were pretty good. But I didn't include that on my list. Okay, so next up was in '92. A friend of mine gave me a computer. It was a ColecoVision, or a Coleco computer, believe it or not. So I think technically that might have been the first computer that I owned. But it wasn't it wasn't good. I mean, it was not a good computer, but it was still kind of fun. It had a word processor on there. There's games and all that stuff, but even had a printer and everything. So Coleco computer, and that was about 1992. And it had a slot for ColecoVision games, so I could also had a tape deck. Now this was the weirdest thing. I never seen anything like it before. They actually had games on a tape. So like a regular audio cassette. It looked like exactly like an audio cassette, but there was a game on there, and it would load the game, and then it would have to like rewind and stuff like that. So that kind of blew me away. I didn't know that was possible. But yeah. So Coleco computer, wrong color. Wrong color again. I'm on orange here, jeez. Come on, retro. Get it together. So yeah, Coleco computer, gift from a friend. And I'll put tape drive. That's very unique. Okay, so, and I didn't really use it that much because it was already like super old technology, but it was fun to play with every once in a while. I don't have that anymore, unfortunately. Okay, so that was, yeah. Let's see. Okay, now speaking of computers, my first actual, like, real PC was in about, I'm gonna guess, around 1993. First PC. And it was pretty cool because it had a CD-ROM drive, which was the first computer that I ever saw that had a CD-ROM drive. So it was from a tape drive to a CD-ROM drive. I didn't know, again, that CD-ROM drives were possible. And on the computer. And I remember going to school and telling my friends, like, man, I got this computer, it says a CD drive on it. And they're like, what, get out of here, you're lying, or whatever. No one believed me that I had a computer with a CD on it. And now it's funny that it's getting harder and harder to find a computer with an optical drive on it at all. So I guess history repeats itself in a way. And I remember that one of the first games that I got was The Seventh Guest, which was, I believe, one of the first CD-based games ever. And so, let's see. But Seventh Guest. And I'll put CD-ROM. CD-ROM. Seventh Guest, it was good. Amazing graphics for the time. It's kind of, didn't age all that well, but man, I had a blast playing that game. It's pretty scary too, so it was for the time. Yeah, so that was that. And then eventually, well, I'll get to that later. I don't want to spoil it. Okay, so that was my first PC in 93. So yeah, and then a very, very, very significant time on the timeline as well was the first time that I played SNES. Was about, I can't remember if it was 92 or 93, but I'll just put it as 93. Played SNES. So the first time I played was at a relative's house, and I remember being just blown away by the music and the graphics. I think the first game that I played was F-Zero, to be honest. It was F-Zero and Super Mario World, but I think the first was F-Zero. And you can imagine, it was just like I was discovering new senses that I never had before. You know what I mean? It's like, and the music was like, oh wow, I'm hearing stuff that I didn't know my ears could hear. It's kind of weird to think about it that way, but that's exactly how it felt. It was definitely an amazing experience. Yeah, I remember Super Mario World just being totally amazed by the game. The gameplay, the graphics, the sound, everything was just incredible. So, and then the same friend that owned the Sega Master System ended up getting SNES. So I played that a lot at his house. Like a lot. It was like I owned the system, even though I actually never owned the system. let's see. Some of my favorite games that I remember playing were Castlevania, Street Fighter 2, SimCity, Zelda, Mario Kart. Amazing, amazing game. ActRaiser, Final Fight, Star Fox, and so many more. What a great system. And if you like RPGs, it's an incredible system. I didn't really know it at the time that the SNES had that many RPGs. But yeah, they have a ton. So yeah, that was a very significant time. SNES, one of the best Nintendo systems. Well, it's kind of hard to pick because they're all so awesome. But yeah, the SNES is up there for sure. Okay, what's next? Okay, so also in '93, approximately '93, which was a very busy year it seems. I'll put it on the bottom here, and I keep grabbing the wrong marker. Too many markers to choose from. So it's going through there. I know it's kind of confusing. I'll make it go around. There. What was the first time that I played Doom on the PC? Played Doom. So I remember my brother came back from his friend's house and he's like, "Oh man, my friend had this game on his computer, and you're shooting all these monsters, and it's from your own point of view, and you have this gun, all these guns." I'm like, "What? Come on!" I couldn't imagine the game being as awesome as he was describing it. But then eventually my brother got a copy, and I was instantly hooked to this game. And I've said this before, but I spent so many hours of my life playing the Doom games. It's ridiculous, but time well spent, I gotta say. So, very significant game, I guess, in the history of my life, really. I mean, it's kind of sad in one way, but hey, it is what it is. I'm a Doomaholic, what can I say? So yeah, that's how I started with Doom. Okay, then there was kind of a few years where not much happened. It was a long wait for the next big thing in the world of Nintendo. So 1996, I think you all know what I'm talking about. It is the N64. I'll shove it over here. N64. Also known as the Nintendo 64, if you couldn't guess what the N stood for. And man, I remember I waited so long for this console. Long time for this console. I was very hyped for it too. I was so excited to play Mario 64. And I would just imagine how fun it would be. I'd look at the magazines and see the awesome screenshots. I was like super hyped for this. So yeah, finally I got it. And of course the first game I got was Mario 64. But I must be honest, I was a little bit disappointed in Mario 64. Maybe only because I overhyped it in my own mind. I don't know, but I imagined it would be better in my own mind, or funner to play. But it is. I mean, it's awesome. No one can say it's not an awesome game. It is awesome, but it's not my favorite N64 game. I think my favorites would probably be the Zelda games, the two Zelda games, and Banjo-Kazooie is probably my all-time favorite game. At least, definitely my favorite platformer. To me, Banjo-Kazooie was everything that I wanted Mario 64 to be. But anyway, maybe I'll do a video about that, about Banjo-Kazooie later, gameplay video or something. But yeah, the games that I owned for this system were Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. I never know how to say that, but the other Zelda game, Majora's Mask, Resident Evil 2, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day was another awesome game, Turok Rage Wars, WCW versus NWO World Tour, WWF Warzone, Jet Force Gemini, Doom 64, Quake 64, Quake 2, Donkey Kong 64, and there's probably others, but those are the ones that I can remember. Fortunately, I don't own these games anymore. They're very 64 was an awesome system, and the only thing I didn't like was the controller was not the greatest. I just didn't like the way things were positioned and stuff like that, and the three-pronged controller thing with the three things that you hold on to. I don't know. It was just weird, very awkward to hold the controller for me. I'd get like hand cramps playing that thing, but what can you do? I'm sure there was a third-party controller that was better, but probably not. And then what else? And you know what? I think that does it for the 90s. 97, 98, 99, yeah. I think that's it. I thought there would be more to say for the 90s. But looks like that is about it. Alright, so that wraps up the 90s then. I'm sure there's other things that I collected during this time here. Like I remember I bought an Atari and a whole bunch of games, but I'm not going to include that there. Yeah, because I was getting into collecting at this point, so... okay, so now let's move to the 2000s here. And then, so 2001, there was another Nintendo console released. I believe it was 2001, and it was the GameCube. I don't have to conserve space too much anymore because there's not going to be that much in the last 2 decades. So it was Nintendo GameCube. Nintendo GameCube. And yeah, and I think what was the first game that I owned for this? I think it was probably that Star Wars game, Rogue Squadron 2. I think it was called Rogue Leader. Was probably the first game that I owned for the system. I think it was like the only game that there wasn't that many games for launch from what I remember. So Star Wars Rogue Leader, first game that I owned for the system. But yeah, it was a good system. I forgot how good the system was until I started, looking back at the games that I owned. Once again, I don't own these games anymore, but I'm just trying to remember the games that I had for the system. I'm like, wow, this was a pretty awesome system, actually. I think it might actually be better than the N64, just in terms of the quality of the selection of games, I guess. So yeah, the games that I owned were Mario Sunshine, Paper Mario, amazing game, awesome game. Zelda, Twilight Princess, Zelda Wind Waker, both amazing games. Mario Kart Double Dash, which was okay. I don't know how you say this, but Bat and Kaidos, it was like this RPG game. I know there wasn't many RPGs on the GameCube, not many good ones, but this one was actually pretty good. The full title was, or the subtitle was Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. And I remember the music on that game being amazing. It's an underrated game. I don't really hear many people talking about it. F-Zero GX, pretty awesome. Legends of Wrestling, not great. Lego Star Wars. Lego Star Wars, I'm not sure which one it was. Metroid Prime 2, both awesome games. Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, which I thought was okay. Resident Evil 0, which was good. Resident Evil 4 was amazing. I think that's my favorite Resident Evil game. Like I said, the Star Wars game, Star Fox Adventures, which was a fun Zelda type game, and The Simpsons Road Rage, which was a lot of fun too. So, and I know I owned more than that, but those were good games, man. Like really top quality, fun games. So, but yeah, sadly I had to depart with them. The cycle of life, Alright, so then, I used the wrong color too. That should have been in blue. I'll fix that. Oh, now it looks green. Whatever. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so moving along. In around 2005, I think, I ended up getting 2004. I ended up buying an Xbox, an original Xbox with a mod chip, so that I can put a bunch of like emulators on there and stuff. Don't tell the FBI or whoever cares about that kind of thing. So I had like pretty much every ROM for every game that ever existed. Well, not really, but I had a lot anyways. So I'll just put ROMs. But I also owned games, actual Xbox games. The other one I really remember owning. Well, actually, no, there's probably like three I remember owning: Doom 3, Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind, and The Hobbit. But the only one the first one I think I got was Doom 3, most likely. So I'll just put that down here. 2, 3. So, yeah, that was the Xbox. I don't have too much fond memories of Xbox because, again, it was something I bought later, and I just bought it mostly for the ROMs. But Doom 3 was pretty good. Okay, so that was that. And again, I used the wrong color. Yeah, well, I screwed it all up. I have to start all over now. Scrap it up. No, I'm kidding. And, okay, so that was Doom 3. And then in 2009, approximately 2009. So yeah, like once the Nintendo, what's it called, Nintendo Wii came out, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't too keen on the motion control thing, so I don't know, lost interest, I guess, in Nintendo a little bit. And then I ended up getting an Xbox 360 around 2009. Xbox 360. And do I remember what the first game I got was? You know what? I don't remember what the first game I got was for the 360. It might have been Left 4 Dead. So yeah, I'll just put Left 4 Dead this time. This time in the right color. Left 4 Dead. Pretty fun game, Left 4 Dead. But yeah, a pretty good system. I enjoyed it a lot. I owned quite a few games, but I have a hard time remembering which games I owned. But this is what I can remember: Left 4 Dead 4. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Borderlands, which was great. Fallout 3 and New Vegas were both awesome. Really opened my eyes to a new type of game. New for me, anyways. Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, both amazing games. Lego Indiana Jones, which was pretty fun. I had Duke Nukem Forever, which is okay. It's better than a lot of people were saying it was. Got a pretty bad rap. There was a Simpsons game. I think it was just called The Simpsons the Game or something like that. Amazing Simpsons game. Probably the best Simpsons game I played. Wish I still had that one. And I also played Gears of War. I'm not sure. It wasn't the first one. I guess it was the second one, maybe. But yeah, those are the games that I remember owning. Pretty fun system, I must say. And yeah, that wraps it up for the 2000s. Now we got the last decade left, which will be very quick, because there's not much to say about this decade for me. 2015. About 2015, I got, can you guess what I got? PS4. I got a PS4. Not sure why I decided on PS4 as opposed to Xbox One, but whatever, it is what it is. And I didn't own it for very long. Again, it's one of those things I had to get rid of. But the only game, and besides, I wasn't even playing it that much, so I'm like, why do I have this thing sitting in my place? Probably the first game that I got was Fallout 4. Fallout 4. Which, to be honest, I didn't really enjoy that much, as much as I didn't enjoy as much as I did part 3, and I got kind of boring after a while, but I did end up buying it on Skype again, so I'm gonna give it another chance and probably make some videos about it too. But yeah, some of the other games I remember having was just GTA 5 and Star Wars Battlefront. I don't know if I had anything else, to be honest, for the system. Nothing I can remember. And then something else which I didn't put on here, I think around 2017. I mean, this wasn't on my list, but I'll add it. When I started to play Steam games on PC, so I kind of forgot about, the console market and just went for PC. And I've been pretty happy with that because there's a lot of older games that are pretty awesome. And yeah, so it's a lot of games, a lot of older games that are really good that I didn't get a chance to play. And yeah, maybe they don't have the best graphics or anything, but they're still good and they're way cheaper than buying new games for consoles or even new games for PC. So it's a huge selection, and that's why I like playing games on Steam. The only thing I don't like is not having the physical packaging. I'm naturally a collector and I like having these things in my hands, but oh well, nothing's perfect. And I don't remember what the first Steam game I bought was, but I'll just say it was Doom 2016. Wait, that can't be. Oh yeah, it can be. I'm like, wait a minute, 2000. Yeah, I bought it later. Didn't buy it when it was brand new, duh. Come on, retro. Okay. I think that more or less does it for Retro's game history. I know it was very rambling and stuff like that, but I was trying to figure out how to fit all this stuff in here. I hope that gives you an idea of where I've been and what I've done with my life. Sad as I may be, I'm just kidding, it's not what I've done with my life. I think I've done a little bit more than that, but not much. But there it is. I'll stop rambling now. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope this wasn't too messy for you, and I hope you found it relaxing. And until next time,